Welcome to the Books Bible Study. We are continuing on our journey of reading the entire Bible. If you are just starting with us, it is not too late to go ahead and start at Genesis 1. We want to get as many as we can in the beginning so that you can follow along with us. Those of you that have already completed Genesis, congratulations. Genesis was 50 chapters. So congratulations for sticking it out thus far. And we will continue with Exodus chapter 12, verse 1. Now the Lord spoke to Moses and Aaron in the land of Egypt, saying, verse 2, this month shall be your beginning of months. It shall be the first month of the year to you. Verse 3, speak to all the congregation of Israel, saying, on the 10th of this month, every man shall take for himself a lamb according to the house of his father, a lamb for a household. So the children of Israel have not left Egypt yet. So these are the instructions that the Lord is giving to them. So they are to take a lamb, right? Verse 4. And if the household is too small for the lamb, let him and his neighbor next to his house take it according to the number of the persons, according to each man's need. You shall make your count for the lamb. So only enough for each family, unless the family is too small for one lamb, then you would add people to ensure that the full lamb will be accounted for. Okay, so verse 5, I'm getting ready to tell you the reason why. Verse 5 says, your lamb shall be without blemish, a male of the first year. Very specific. You may take it from the sheep or from the goats. Verse 6, now you shall keep it until the 14th day of the same month. Then the whole assembly of the congregation of Israel shall kill it at twilight. So you take the lamb on the 10th day, keep it separate from the others, and then you're going to keep it for 4 days, and then you're going to kill it. Okay, this is the instruction, and it has to be a male lamb. Verse 7 says, and they shall take some of the blood and put it on the 2 doorposts and on the lintel of the houses where they eat it. So the lintel is the top of the door frame. So the 2 doorposts on the side and then the top of the door frame. Verse 8 says, then they shall eat the flesh on that night, roasted with fire, with unleavened bread, and with bitter herbs they shall eat it. So unleavened bread is bread that is made without yeast. So it's flat, right? So just the flour, water, and salt or some other seasoning. They were not to use good tasting herbs. They were to use bitter herbs. Verse 9 says, do not eat it raw. It's talking about the lamb now. Do not eat it raw, nor boiled at all with water, but roast it in fire. Its head with its legs and its entrails, the whole lamb roasted. Okay. Verse 10, you shall let none of it remain until morning, and what remains of it until morning you shall burn with fire. So this is why if your family was small, you needed to share it with your neighbor. Otherwise, you would be eating it, right? Because you could not save any part of it. The rest would be burnt. So in order not to waste it, if one lamb was too much for one family, you would share it with your neighbor so that none would be wasted because you wasn't going to be able to eat it in the morning. Verse 11 says, and thus you shall eat it, with a belt on your waist, your sandals on your feet, and your staff in your hand. So you shall eat it in haste. It is the Lord's Passover. So what does that tell you? Why does he want you to be dressed when you eat it? You got to be ready to go, right? So this is what they told them to do the night before that last plague went out. They had to eat, be dressed, be ready, put the blood over the doorpost, be ready to go, right? Verse 12 says, for I will pass through the land of Egypt on that night, and will strike all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, both man and beast, and against all the gods of Egypt I will execute judgment. I am the Lord. So these plagues were judgment against all the gods of Egypt to show them and the people that our God is the Lord, right? So we see what type of judgment comes upon people and land that have other gods, okay? Verse 13 says, now the blood shall be a sign for you on the houses where you are. And when I see the blood, I will pass over you, right? And the plague shall not be on you to destroy you when I strike the land of Egypt. So if you did not follow the instructions, your home did not get passed over. There were specific instructions for this Passover, right? And this is why we plead the blood of Jesus, because it causes the evil or judgment intended for the wicked to pass over us, the righteous, right? Except the lamb that was slain for us was not an animal. It was Jesus. It was a man, right? Verse 14 says, "So this day shall be to you a memorial, and you shall keep it as a feast to the Lord throughout your generations. You shall keep it as a feast by an everlasting ordinance." Verse 15, 7 days you shall eat unleavened bread. On the first day you shall remove the leaven from your houses. So there is no accidents, right? Remove the leaven from your house on the first day, because it says, "For whoever eats leavened bread from the first day until the seventh day, that person shall be cut off from Israel," right? How many of you would have found an excuse to keep some leaven in your house, right? How many of you would forget you had the leaven in your house, right? So he said, take it out the first day, so there's no accidents, right? Now, leaven was considered extra and not pure, right? So this is how we look when we try to keep a little impurity, a little sin in our houses, right? Trying to mix in what God said should not be mixed, what God said should not be there, period. Okay, and there's a scripture in the New Testament that says a little leaven leavens the whole lump. So a little bit of bad influence, a little bit of what God said shouldn't be there, will end up being destructive to you, right? Verse 16, "On the first day there shall be a holy convocation, and on the seventh day there shall be a holy convocation for you. No manner of work shall be done on them, but that which everyone must eat, that only may be prepared by you." So a holy convocation is a day that is set apart. No work can be done. It is set apart for rest and worship. And so this Passover is the first holy convocation. Convocation is just a gathering of people. Holy means sacred, set apart, right? So this Passover is the first holy convocation. And there will be other convocations described later on in the scriptures. Verse 17 says, "So you shall observe the feast of unleavened bread, for on this same day I have brought your armies out of the land of Egypt. Therefore you shall observe this day throughout your generations as an everlasting ordinance." Verse 18, "In the first month, on the 14th day of the month, at evening, you shall eat unleavened bread until the 21st day of the month at evening." So only flat bread, right? Water, flour, salt. Only flat bread for 7 days from the 14th to the 21st. Okay? No leaven in the house. He said take the leaven out on the first day, so that way you're not tempted to put it in any of the other 6 days, right? Verse 19, it says, "For 7 days no leaven shall be found in your houses, since whoever eats what is leavened, that same person shall be cut off from the congregation of Israel, whether he is a stranger or a native of the land." Verse 20, "You shall eat nothing leavened. In all your dwellings you shall eat unleavened bread." Verse 21, "Then Moses called for all the elders of Israel and said to them, Pick out and take lambs for yourselves according to your families, and kill the Passover lamb." Verse 22, "And you shall take a bunch of hyssop, dip it in the blood that is in the basin, and strike the lintel and the 2 doorposts with the blood that is in the basin. And none of you shall go out of the door of his house until morning." So hyssop is a flower. You can grab a bunch of it, and it grows to a foot to about 2 feet. And so it is often used biblically for purification processes, right? So God wants them to take this bunch of hyssop, dip it in the lamb's blood, paint both sides of the doorpost and the top, and then stay in the house. Okay? When God said stay, stay. How many people would try to sneak out before morning? God said stay in the house. And I think these days we don't really fear God enough to do exactly what he says, or either we take what he say lightly, or we change it to make it more comfortable for us, right? How many of you would have decided to fry the lamb, right? Or add some gravy, okay? or some better seasoning. If God has given you an instruction, do not alter it. Do not say, well, God understands. I can't do it like that. He understands my heart. Uh, do what God says to do, because most of the time it's for our protection. Okay. This was to protect them, right? So they needed to do exactly what he said do. Verse 23 says, for the Lord will pass through to strike the Egyptians, and when he sees the blood on the lintel and on the two doorposts, the Lord will pass over the door and will not allow the destroyer to come into your house to strike you. Okay? What were you supposed to put the blood on the door with? Right, hyssop. Not your hands, not a paintbrush. Hyssop. Verse 24 says, and you shall observe this thing as an ordinance for you and your sons forever. Verse 25. It will come to pass when you come to the land which the Lord will give you, just as he promised, that you shall keep this service. Verse 26. And it shall be when your children say to you, what do you mean by this service? 27. That you shall say, it is the Passover sacrifice of the Lord, who passed over the houses of the children of Israel in Egypt when he struck the Egyptians and delivered our household. So the people bowed their heads in worship. So this is like a memorial, so that when your children ask about it, you can tell them how God delivered, right? Verse 28 says, then the children of Israel went away and did so, just as the Lord had commanded Moses and Aaron, so they did. Verse 29, and it came to pass at midnight that the Lord struck all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, from the firstborn of Pharaoh who sat on his throne to the firstborn of the captive who was in the dungeon, and all the firstborn of the livestock. So this is the 10th plague now, right? Verse 30 says, so Pharaoh rose in the night, he, all his servants, and all the Egyptians, and there was a great cry in Egypt, for there was not a house where there was not one dead. Verse 31. Then he called for Moses and Aaron by night and said, rise, go out from among my people, both you and the children of Israel, and go, serve the Lord as you have said. Verse 32. Also take your flocks and your herds as you have said, and be gone, and bless me also. So now his tune is a little different. Now it's as you said, right? Verse 33 said, and the Egyptians urged the people that they might send them out of the land in haste, for they said, we shall all be dead. Verse 34, so the people took their dough before it was leavened, having their kneading bowls bound up in their clothes on their shoulders. Verse 35, now the children of Israel had done according to the word of Moses, and they had asked from the Egyptians articles of silver, articles of gold, and clothing. Verse 36, and the Lord had given the people favor in the sight of the Egyptians, so that they granted them what they requested. Thus they plundered the Egyptians. Remember, he said they wasn't going to leave empty-handed, right? Verse 37, then the children of Israel journeyed from Ramesses to Succoth, about 600,000 men on foot, besides children. So we have problems moving 60 people, moving 600 people, right? 600,000 men besides the children. So they had grown from the 60-something people that came to Egypt during the famine with Jacob, all his sons and their sons' kids, to now well over 600,000, right? That's a lot of people to move under the responsibility of 2 men, right? Verse 38, a mixed multitude went up with them also, and flocks and herds, a great deal of livestock. Verse 39, and they baked unleavened cakes of the dough which they had brought out of Egypt, for it was not leavened, because they were driven out of Egypt and could not wait, nor had they prepared provisions for themselves. Verse 40, now the sojourn of the children of Israel who lived in Egypt was 430 years. And this is exactly what God told Abraham. He said, know for certain that your descendants will be strangers in a land not their own, and they will be enslaved and mistreated 400 years. But I will punish the nation they serve as slaves, and afterward they will come out with great possession. God already told Abraham this, right? Verse 41. And it came to pass at the end of the 430 years, on that very same day, it came to pass that all the armies of the Lord went out from the land of Egypt. So the armies of the Lord is the same as the children of Israel. Verse 42 says, it is a night of solemn observance to the Lord for bringing them out of the land of Egypt. This is that night of the Lord, a solemn observance for all the children of Israel throughout their generations. Verse 43. And the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, this is the ordinance of the Passover. No foreigner shall eat it. So as of now, the Passover lamb and bread can only be eaten by the Hebrews, the Israelites, right? Verse 44. But every man's servant who is bought for money, when you have circumcised him, then he may eat it. Verse 45 says, a sojourner and a hired servant shall not eat it. And so I find that we have those who are non-Hebrew telling other believers, right, that this Passover is required for them to participate in. This was only required for the Hebrew Israelites and their servants. So don't feel guilty for not doing something that you don't understand, right? People will make you feel like they are closer to God because they decided to pretend to be Jews, or they decided to take this ordinance, right? That's fine if you choose to, but you don't tell other people that they have to, right? This is not required for people that are not Hebrew. 46. In one house it shall be eaten. You shall not carry any of the flesh outside the house, nor shall you break one of its bones, nor shall you break one of its bones. Verse 47. All the congregation of Israel shall keep it. Okay. All the congregation of Israel shall keep it. Verse 48. And when a stranger dwells with you and wants to keep the Passover of the Lord, let all his males be circumcised, and then let him come near and keep it, and he shall be as a native of the land, for no uncircumcised person shall eat it. Verse 49. One law shall be for the native born and for the stranger who dwells among you. Verse 50. Thus all the children of Israel did as the Lord commanded Moses and Aaron, so they did. Verse 51. And it came to pass on that very same day that the Lord brought the children of Israel out of the land of Egypt according to their army. So finally, Pharaoh has let the people go. And so let this be a lesson to all of us to not serve other gods, right? Because God pronounces judgment on them. And sometimes you can make oaths or vows or pledges unknowingly. Anyone and anything that you submit to or you make an agreement with, make sure you're asking God about those agreements, right? Is it something that goes against the God you serve? So if you've ever said, I pledge this, or I solemnly swear, or I'm signing this oath, or I'm making this vow, make sure whatever you are agreeing to in that oath and that vow and that pledge is not something that is only reserved for God, right? And so this is how we can kind of get mixed up in serving another God because it's packaged as something else, right? You cannot serve two masters. When you serve God, it's him only. He has to be the only master, right? When you serve the evil one, he doesn't care if you have other masters, right? Because all of them serve him as well. Okay, so let this be a lesson to us to not serve other gods. Let God be the only God that we love with all our heart, soul, mind, and strength, right? And we will see what will happen with the land of Egypt, with Pharaoh, with the children of Israel, what will happen since now they have left the land of Egypt. So stay with us for Exodus chapter 13. God bless.